إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. We begin in the name of Allah, we seek His help, we seek His forgiveness, and we praise Him. And we seek His forgiveness from the darkness that's within our own souls and from the bad deeds in which we do. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide, and whomsoever Allah chooses to misguide, no one can guide. And I bear witness that Allah alone is worthy of worship and that Muhammad is His last and final messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, or be conscious of Allah as He should be made conscious of, and die not except in a state of Islam. Brothers and sisters, I wanted to start off with a story, a very subtle story with a very beautiful message, in which there's a child, a very young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. His parents have taught him to brush his teeth because they're very concerned with this child knowing how to take care of his body. And so he's standing on a stool and he's in front of the bathroom mirror and he's brushing his teeth, standard operating procedure. He's just going on about his day. And he falls backwards off the stool, he loses his footing, and he falls into the shower door and he cuts himself on some of the glass. And so this boy, his parents are not around, they've trained him to be able to do this on his own, and he knows how to do first aid. SubhanAllah, this is a very bright young child. And he goes and he grabs a bandage, he gets some disinfectant, he knows exactly what to do in order to take care of his body so that he can proceed and live comfortably and healthily in this life. But what I find in our society is that we place an overemphasis on the physical, on the dunya, and we fail to recognize that unfortunately there's more. We as Muslims, we believe more than there's just one life. We believe that there's an akhirah, an afterlife. And I want to just question whether we would place the same significance and the same importance in preparing this child for his afterlife as we have prepared him for this life. Obviously this life is immediate and it's happening right now, but dunya is temporary and akhirah is infinite. And so the Prophet, he narrates in an authentic hadith, he says, every child is born upon the true nature, but it is his two parents that come and make him a Jew, a Christian, or a fire worshipper. So the Prophet here, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is saying, peace be upon him, that look, every child has a predisposition, meaning like a fitra, or a inclination, if you will, to always be true, to always do that which is right. And it's society or parents who are responsible for changing this child, changing this personality into something else, into guiding him into a certain path. And so I want to ask whether that child has been guided in the same importance in the way that he was taught to even take care of his teeth. Would he be prepared for the future? And the way in which we prepare our children for the future is through education. We train them through Islamic education. They need to know their religion. They need to know their religion. And right now, unfortunately, we believe that it's up to society, just natural, it will leave them to the wolves, so to speak, and society will fine-tune them into somebody that will just make it on their own. They'll find a way to get through. And unfortunately, we don't live in a society in which trains people to be Muslim. We live in a society that trains people to just accept the norm, right? And so any child, and I grew up in this country I was born here. Any child that grows up in this country, they're going to go through and deal with challenges and ask themselves questions of, who am I? Am I a Muslim or am I American? One identity is telling me to do one thing, and another identity is telling me to do another thing. And when these two things do not add up, there's a conflict. There's a conflict, and there's an inner struggle and turmoil that child faces, that every child is going to face. And I have to ask, have we prepared our children to face that battle? Have we given them the tools to face that battle? It is our responsibility and the responsibilities of the parents to prepare them for that battle. The Prophet ﷺ says in another authentic hadith, a man is like a shepherd of his own family, and he is responsible for them. And so we think, just send them to the masjid, right? Like just, that'll take care of it. But I think that we really look at our community and Muslims living here, take a look around the room, we think this is it. This is the Muslim community. And I'm not happy or proud to say this, but we need to realize that the people who come to Jumu'ah and fulfill their obligation of the Friday prayer, this might be only 5% of Muslims living in America. We have millions of Muslims living in America, and we only have masajid enough to fill thousands. And so we have to ask, where does the discrepancy lie? And we need to just recognize that, look, people are not as religious as we think we are. And so we look through a lens, and this lens it's shaping our vision to believe or to think in a way that is not reality. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? What are we doing in order to prepare these children to defend themselves? It would be the equivalent of throwing a boxer in a boxing match without any training. Would you think that a boxer without any training is going to win a match? If I were to throw my son into a match with Muhammad Ali or with Mike Tyson, would I think to myself, oh yeah, he'll be fine? So taking this analogy and comparing it to our current reality of education with our young youth, why is it that when it comes to that, we think a simple, just a trip to the masjid once a week is going to be enough? Unfortunately, there's tens and tens of hours of just imagery being blasted into the youth's faces in which they are encountering what to think about religion, not just Islam, but any religion. And then you add Islam on top of that with the current goings-on, for example, with Trump becoming president, and it adds a whole other layer of shame and fear to these children's lives. And maybe we're not addressing this fear as we should be. They're dealing with social pressure, social media, everything is telling them spirituality. What is spirituality? That's weird. Religion, that's illogical, it's irrational, it's superstitious. It's much like the time in the Prophet ﷺ in which they were calling Islam magic. They're calling Islam just simple poetry. Everyone is doing within it whatever they can to slander religion, and unfortunately, that's occupying 90% of the times of anyone. But the most fragile is the young generation. The most fragile is the youth. And many of us, we have, thankfully, we have like a community in which we can come and be amongst each other. And that will protect us. We have a community that will protect us. But do the youth have a community that will protect them? Do they have some sort of system that will protect them? Many very noble and passionate individuals across the country, not just here in Southern California, they've come forth, they volunteered their time for the masjid. They said, I'm going to start a youth program, or I'm going to start a weekend school, or I'm going to put on some sort of conference, and this will be what fortifies our youth. And I'm here to tell you that in my humble opinion, as somebody who is very involved with youth in my own local community, that it's not working. It's not enough. We're only reaching 5%. We're not reaching the 100% of the youth that are actually being sent to the masjid. And so you look at the weekend school, and you go through, you go once a week, and you spend maybe half a day, a week there, and then you go to regular school the rest of the week, and all of that is undone. Yeah, they learn their normal education, but what is it that their friends are telling them before and after class? What are all the implications of society telling them? And then when they get older and they're youth and they're teenagers and they really need help and they really need guidance, okay, well, they're getting a little bit lazy right now, so let's just give them youth group, right? So it's not actually like education, it's fun. We can keep the youth together. And you know what? They'll be at the masjid, and that's good enough. And so they'll come 1 hour a week or maybe 2 hours a week for 1 day a week, and they'll come and we'll think, okay, good. They're safe, they're here. But we don't realize what they're doing for the rest of the week. And it's a little bit silly of us to think that, is it not? It's a little silly of us to think that this 1 hour a week is enough to protect people. I know it wasn't enough to protect many youth, and I see that. And then after a while, because they don't find that fulfillment, they leave on their own early anyways. Like if it were up to us, we would keep them there forever. But we find that once you start reaching the college age, they're gone. Once they get a job, we'll see you at Jummah. That's it. That's the height of their involvement. And so the last thing that we have been doing is we've been putting on these conferences. There's actually a conference going on right now. And mashallah, these are very noble efforts. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this, but I'm saying it simply is not enough. And so we go to these conferences and we have this confusion between two very different ideas. One is education, and another is what we like to call edutainment. Edutainment, a mixture of entertainment and education, in which people, they go forth and they think they're learning something. In reality, all they're doing is they're getting an entertainment. You know, it's an important question is to ask is, what's more important to a youth? And if you're young here in the audience, I would ask you yourself to ask yourself this question, is what is more important to me? Excellence or acceptance? Excellence or acceptance? 90% of youth, 90% of anyone, whether you're a youth or not, they're going to say acceptance. It's more important for me to feel like I have a place to belong than to be doing what is right. And that's how you have a racist America. That's how you have fascism, where people they want to fit into conformity. They want to just feel in a place where they can belong, whether they're doing something which is right or wrong. So we shouldn't think that with very minimal effort and very minimal attention that people are going to be placed into these circumstances and they're going to succeed. That's insanity. And so the solution to this is obviously we need to improve our education. We need to start teaching Muslims not just what to do as Muslims, but why they need to be Muslims. They already know what to do. They know how to pray. You know, like alhamdulillah, some of them, but they haven't been taught that, but 90% of them, they know how to pray. They know how to practice their religion for the most part. But they don't know why. They don't know, why am I supposed to be doing this? So we're just, because it's because of Allah. Because of, akhirah. But that's not enough, because they're just being, as I mentioned earlier, they're being constantly attacked. Tens and tens of hours of attacks every day. Everywhere you look, there's something distracting you from our real purpose here on earth. And if you put somebody in that situation long enough, anyone would fail. Anyone. The other thing that we need to do and change within education is we need to develop an education system that will foster an identity, a strong identity for these youth. Because that's honestly what separates somebody who's going to find success and someone who isn't. Is that they believe, you know what, I'm confident and comfortable with calling myself a Muslim. And yes, I understand that right now in the world there's pain and fear about what's going to happen to Muslims, but I'm okay. I'm proud to announce myself as a Muslim, and I have my rights, and I'm going to stick by them. Is that something that we hear more, or do we hear, perhaps I should take off, hijab, or perhaps I should, change my name from Muhammad to Mo, right? So I don't catch too much attention because I want what's safe for me. Obviously safety first, but that pride, that izzah in Islam, it's not been instilled in the young generation, and we need to make a change. Rather than us focusing on just the do's and don'ts of, okay, this is haram and this is halal, and all this rote memorization, we need to develop a system where people feel dignified that they are Muslim. And that's what it is, really. Like, it should be something like, I'm Muslim and I'm proud. And that's who I am. And if we were to take an honest survey of the youth on whether they actually feel that way, I know that we would be disappointed. In fact, there have been many surveys done in which one found that Muslim youth, compared to Christian, Jewish, and any other youth from any religious denomination, were more angry, twice as angry than any other youth group. Any other youth group, twice as angry. 30% of Muslim youth are angry at their current circumstances, and Christians, it goes as low as like 12%. So I'm not saying all this for us to be scared and feel doomed, but for us to want to take action, because us as a community, it is our responsibility. As I mentioned earlier, it is the parents' responsibility to take care of the youth, but it's also the community's responsibility, because after all, it's not just the future of their kids, it's the future of our entire community. And you'd be surprised, it only takes 10 years for somebody who's 11 years old to become an adult and be a full functioning adult working in the world, right? So 10 years, and that happens very quickly. So it can go in either direction. It can go downhill or it can go uphill. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in an authentic hadith, he said that there will come a time when holding on to your iman will be like holding on to hot coals. And I fear that time is coming too quickly, where people are it hurts them to hold on to the iman, and everything is pushing them away from that. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen us and give us the courage and the pride to pursue life as Muslims and to pursue His way. أقول قولي هذا فاستغفر الله ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. A friend of mine, he told me a story the other day about this issue of education, and I thought it was exactly what everyone needed to hear. He told me, I went to weekend school, one of these weekend schools, for about 10 years. MashaAllah. You think somebody like that would be, finally, he went through the whole program, right? He's got 10 years in his book. He knows exactly how to deal with being a Muslim living in this country, right? But what he told me was heartbreaking. He told me every year we would learn nothing but Arkan Islam, right? The 5 pillars of Islam. And one time when I had a really great teacher, he told me I learned the 6 pillars of Iman. After 10 years of education, that's all he had learned. 10 years! That's a monstrous amount of time. And he only learned the basics. And what's most scary about that is anyone who puts in 10 years of time into education, you would think that this is somebody who's a master. He's put in the work, he knows everything. So it gives a false sense of accomplishment, and you're setting them up for a greater fall. It's better to have somebody who believes that they know nothing and actually knows nothing than somebody who thinks they know something when they really don't know nothing. They don't know anything, excuse me. Because if you don't know what the problem is, or you don't know there's a problem, it's a greater threat, it's a greater danger. There was a boy who told me that he had gone to a party. This is a youth that I was very close with. And he told me that he had lived his entire life according to the way that his parents had told him to, because he wanted to be a good son, right? His parents never told him why he needed to do these things, but he wanted to be a good son, so he listened to his parents. And he ended up going to a party because, you know what, he had enough after years and years of being slowly chipped away at his iman and at his will to do what is right. He said, you know what, I just have to go and experience it for myself. And what he told me about his story was heartbreaking. He went to the party, and his friends who knew him there, they knew that he was a Muslim. They knew who he was. And to them, it was a victory. It was like, you know what, our way of life is right. Go partying and doing all this immoral behavior, we were right the whole time. This guy, he couldn't make it. And to him, he said, you know what, on that day, I didn't feel that I just failed myself, I failed my religion. And I felt that this story is a perfect example of why it's important for us to not only develop an educational system in which people are actually learning their religion, but learning why they need to practice their religion. And prepare them for life here, not just rote memorization. Because what's going to separate us between a cultural tradition and Islam? That's a very important question I want you all to please think about after the khutbah. So after all this, we have to ask, when are we going to take things to the next level? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I'm inviting all of you to take responsibility for the community, and I know that it's a tough thing to do. Many times I'm sitting in the audience myself as listening to a khutbah, and I feel that the khatib is just saying, please do something. And I'm just sitting there, you know what, I'm willing to do something, but what do? I don't know what to do. And I think we need to come together as a group under leadership, as a strong community, and tackle issues like these, and support the institutions in which we are. We need to support this masjid. We need to support the school here and make sure that they develop and they expand at a rate in which they can finally deal with issues like this. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that's going to have to be built up to. So, and the last reminder for y'all, please. I work in educational university myself, an Islamic university that was recently started by Sheikh Mustafa Omar. And a lot of times we're getting requests by parents to enroll their kids into a university. And what's funny to me is that, that's great and very noble that you want to put your kids in education. That's what I've been talking about this whole time. But what about yourself? Are we neglecting our own Islamic education? Are we neglecting learning about religion? Are we neglecting the Quran from our lives? Really, think about that. And if you are, I want to invite you all to, if you have children, study with them. And they'll learn by example. They'll learn by example. There's a very famous proverb that says that a vessel can only pour that which it contains within. So I want you all to think, what would come out of the vessel if somebody were to pour you? Would it be the religion of Islam? Would it be Iman? Would it be Taqwa? Or would it be that which everything in society has put in us, whether we wanted it to be there or not? So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen us in our Iman and our character. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us Taqwa. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a proper understanding of Islam and His religion. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار رب اغفر لنا ولوالدي والمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وأقم الصلاة